Hi again. Kenneth Scott Latourette, History of Christianity, page 344, dealing with the growth of British Christianity. The Irish missionaries to the English were largely associated with the names of Columba, also known as Columba, and Iona. Columba was born in Ireland of royal blood, probably in 521, and so was an older contemporary of Gregory, that is, Gregory the Great and Columban. He seems early to have dedicated himself to the monastic life, and in due time was ordained deacon and priest. He was never a bishop. In 562 or 563, when in the full vigor of middle life, moved, so his friend and biographer says, by the love of Christ, he left Ireland with 12 companions and established his headquarters on Iona, a rocky island about 3 miles long and about 1.5 miles wide off the west coast of Scotland. He was a man of striking personality, a born leader, forceful, with quick wrath for injustice to the weak, and tenderness for the poor and for the brute creation, and with a simple and deep faith in God. He is said always to have been occupied with study, prayer, writing, fasting, and watching. Iona was his center, and there he was head of the monastic community which he founded. From Iona he made frequent journeys, some to Ireland, but more in what is now the mainland of Scotland. In Scotland there were immigrant Scots from Ireland, Celtic and probably largely Christian. There too were other Celtic folk. Picts, that is, many of them pagans. The Christian faith had already been planted among these Celts, partly by Ninian, a younger contemporary and warm admirer of Martin of Tours, in the forepart of the 5th century. Kentigern, probably the same as Mungo, a shadowy figure about whom little certain information has survived, and whose headquarters are said to have been at Glasgow, had been active as a missionary in the north of Great Britain in the 6th century. Columba also won some of the Celtic folk of Scotland. His disciples told of miracles performed through him, which had much to do with gaining respect for his teaching. Long after Columba, the community of Iona carried on his tradition. It was from Iona, a generation or so after the death of the founder, that a notable contribution was begun towards the conversion of some of the English. In a struggle for power in Northumbria, one of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in the north of England, 2 princes of the blood royal took refuge on Iona, and there were baptized. When one of them, Oswald, came into control in Northumbria, he added Iona for a missionary for his people. He asked Iona for a missionary for his people. Christianity had already been introduced into the kingdom by the Roman mission, of which we are soon to speak. But it was to Iona that Oswald turned for a bishop. The first to be sent proved poorly adapted to the assignment, but the second, Aidan, was remarkably successful. To him Oswald gave headquarters on the island of Lindisfarne, off the east coast, larger than Iona, but like the latter, a convenient center. Aidan traveled through the little kingdom mainly on foot, winning pagans, confirming believers, caring for the poor, ransoming slaves, and educating and ordaining priests. Aidan's successor, Finan, also from Iona, baptized the king and royal entourage of Mercia, an Anglo-Saxon kingdom in the heart of England, and aided in the conversion of the East Saxons. Cuthbert, later bishop of Lindisfarne, famous as a saint, had much to do with extending the work of conversion in the north. It was the English bishop Wilfrid, educated on Lindisfarne, who was instrumental in bringing the South Saxons to the baptismal font, and who directed the conversion of the Isle of Wight, said to have been the last of the provinces of Britain to be brought to the faith. Quite apart from the stream which issued from Iona, there were other Irish who aided in the conversion of the English. To the monasteries of Ireland, too, went many English boys for education and training in the ascetic life. The inauguration and initial direction of the Roman mission to the English were part of the enormous labors of Pope Gregory the Great. The members of this mission did not affect the conversion of as many of the English as did the Irish, but they brought the English Church into close fellowship with Rome and were the means of organizing it into the pattern of territorial dioceses and parishes which prevailed on the continent. How Gregory first became interested in the English we do not know. Oral tradition declares that before he became pope, he saw some lads in the slave market in Rome who attracted him by their fair bodies, fine hair, and winsome features. On inquiring, he was told that they came from Britain, that the population was pagan, and that the boys were Angles. Right, he said, for they have an angelic face, and it becomes such to be co-heirs with the angels in heaven. When he learned that they were from the province of Deiri, he exclaimed, "Truly are they de ira," that is de ira, which means delivered from wrath or out of wrath, withdrawn from wrath and called to the mercy of Christ. When told that their king's name was Ella, he exclaimed, "Hallelujah," and the praise of God, the Creator, must be sung in those parts. The tradition went on to declare that Gregory offered himself to the Pope as a missionary to Britain, but that the Roman populace would not let him go. Whether or not this story is true, Britain was traditionally within the Patriarchate, over which Gregory presided, and as we have seen, he sought to fulfill what he deemed his responsibility in various parts of that vast area. It is not strange that with his devotion and wide-ranging vision, as Pope he endeavored to win its pagans to the faith and to give the Church there an ecclesiastical organization. He seems to have redeemed some English slaves with the funds of the Church, and he expressed himself as grieved that the British bishops were doing nothing for the conversion of their pagan neighbors. More about Gregory's exertions and the role of another Augustine, not the Augustine of Hippo of the 5th century, but Augustine, who was to be a major figure in the growth of Christianity in Britain. More next time on that. I'll put in a link to a series we did called Watchtower Myths. And this one is on the Great Apostasy, so-called. And there's 4 videos really in the series, all based upon the first 2 parables of Matthew 13, the wheat, this is the sower parable, and the wheat and the weeds parable. So the first one is on your screen, the first of that series, and the playlist, which is Was There a Great Apostasy? And the whole playlist, by the way, is entitled Why the Church Will Stand and J.W. Org Will Fall. And we encourage you to look at everything that's on that playlist, which is a very close study of many passages from the New Testament in addition to the 7 parables of Matthew 13. See you soon.